The billionaire fired every employee that night, but a maid's toddler refused to leave his side. Benjamin Hale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur through the amber liquid in his crystal glass. At 33, he had built an empire that most men twice his age only dreamed of. Tech innovations that changed industries. Investments that seemed to mint money. A name that commanded respect in every boardroom from New York to Shanghai. Tonight, all of it felt hollow. The call had come 3 hours ago. His CFO, his trusted friend since business school, had been systematically embezzling funds for 2 years. Worse, he'd implicated half the executive team. The board had forced Benjamin to step down temporarily while they investigated. His reputation, carefully constructed over a decade of ruthless deals and calculated risks, was crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. Benjamin had always believed in control. Control over his emotions, his business, his life. His father had taught him that vulnerability was weakness, that sentiment had no place in the world of billion-dollar deals. He had internalized those lessons so thoroughly that he couldn't remember the last time he'd let anyone truly close. Even his relationships were transactions. Beautiful women who understood the rules, who didn't expect promises he couldn't keep. But tonight, control had abandoned him. He'd sent his assistant home hours ago with a single text. "Fire everyone effective immediately. I'll handle severance." It was irrational. He knew most of his household staff had nothing to do with the corporate betrayal, but rage and pain had blurred together into a need to purge everything, to start from nothing, to feel something other than the gnawing emptiness in his chest. The penthouse, usually bustling with his chef, butler, security team, and housekeeping staff, had fallen silent. They'd left quickly, professionally, some with tears, others with anger tightening their faces. He'd watched them go with cold indifference, pouring himself another drink he didn't want, but couldn't stop reaching for. That's when he heard it, the soft patter of small feet on marble floors. Benjamin turned from the window, his vision slightly unfocused from the whiskey. A tiny figure emerged from the hallway leading to the service quarters, illuminated by the city glow filtering through the windows. A little girl, no more than 3 years old, wearing pajamas decorated with cartoon stars and moons. She had dark curls that bounced as she walked and eyes that seemed too large for her small face. "You need to leave," Benjamin said, his voice rough. "I fired everyone. Where's your mother?" The child didn't answer. She simply walked toward him with a fearless determination only toddlers possessed, dragging a worn, stuffed rabbit by one ear. When she reached him, she stopped and looked up, her head tilting to study his face. "Sad," she announced with the blunt honesty of childhood. "You crying?" Benjamin realized with a start that his cheeks were wet. He roughly wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I'm not crying and you need to go home. This is Bunny," the little girl said, holding up her stuffed rabbit. "She helps when sad." Before Benjamin could respond, the child's mother appeared, breathless and panicked. Maria Lopez had worked as one of his housekeeping staff for 8 months. He'd barely noticed her beyond approving her hiring. Just another efficient, quiet presence who kept his vast home running smoothly. "Lily. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Mr. Hale." Maria rushed forward, her accent. He thought maybe Colombian, thickening with stress. "I was packing our things in the staff room. I thought she was asleep. We're leaving right now. I'm so sorry." Maria was 28. Benjamin knew from her file, though he never really looked at her before. She wore simple clothes, jeans, and a sweater, and her long dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. There were shadows under her eyes that spoke of exhaustion, but her face held a warmth that seemed foreign in his cold chrome and marble world. She reached for Lily, but the little girl shook her head stubbornly and pressed closer to Benjamin's leg. "No, Mama, he's sad. Bunny helps. Lily, please." Maria's voice cracked with embarrassment and fear. "Mr. Hale doesn't want." "It's fine," Benjamin heard himself say, though nothing about this was fine. He should want them gone. He should escort them out himself. Instead, he found himself staring at this child who had somehow seen through the armor he'd spent 33 years perfecting. Lily tugged at his pant leg with surprising strength. "Sit down. You too big up there." Against every instinct, against every lesson his father had drilled into him, Benjamin found himself lowering to the floor. The marble was cold through his expensive suit pants. Lily immediately climbed into his lap, settling there as if she belonged, and pressed her stuffed rabbit into his hands. "Bunny is very soft," Lily explained seriously. "When I'm sad, I hold Bunny and Mama sings. Mama sings good." Maria stood frozen, clearly torn between pulling her daughter away from the volatile billionaire who'd just fired his entire staff and not wanting to upset Lily further. Her hands twisted together nervously. "We'll go," Maria said quietly. "I just need to get our bags from." "Why are you still here?" Benjamin asked, his voice lacking its usual edge. "Everyone else left an hour ago." Maria's chin lifted slightly, a flash of pride beneath the fear. "We live here, Mr. Hale. You provided staff housing as part of my contract in the basement apartment. I have nowhere else to take Lily at 11 o'clock at night. I was packing our things and looking for somewhere we could go, but the shelters are full and I can't afford a hotel until I get my severance check, and I didn't want to wake Lily." But she stopped, seeming to realize she was rambling. Her cheeks flushed. "We'll be out of your way in 20 minutes. I promise." Benjamin looked down at the child in his lap, who had taken his large hand and placed it on the rabbit's soft fur. Lily was humming tunelessly, completely unconcerned with the adult tension swirling around her. When was the last time someone had simply sat with him like this, expecting nothing, offering only presents? "It's late," he said finally. "You can stay tonight, leave in the morning." "Mr. Hale, I don't think I'm not debating this, Ms. Lopez." Some of his usual authority crept back into his voice. "It's late. Your daughter is tired and I'm not putting a child out on the street at this hour. You can leave in the morning." Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you. That's very kind." Kind. When was the last time anyone had called him that? Benjamin almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Lily yawned, a huge jaw-cracking yawn that made her look even smaller. She leaned against his chest, her warm weight settling into him like she'd done this 1,000 times before. "Story now," she mumbled sleepily. "Lily, no," Maria started, but Benjamin found himself saying, "What kind of story?" And just like that, the worst night of his life took a turn he never could have predicted. Benjamin Hale had attended Harvard at 16, built his first $1 million company at 22, and negotiated deals with some of the shrewdest minds in global business. None of that had prepared him for telling a bedtime story to a 3-year-old. Once upon a time, he began awkwardly, still sitting on his penthouse floor with Lily curled in his lap. "There was a dragon. A nice dragon?" Lily asked, her dark eyes suddenly alert despite her obvious exhaustion. "Sure, a nice dragon. What's the dragon's name?" Benjamin searched his mind, which usually held thousands of data points and business strategies, and came up completely blank. "Fred." Maria made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. She'd lowered herself to sit on the floor nearby, clearly ready to snatch Lily away at the first sign of his patience running out. Benjamin felt her watching him, probably wondering what kind of man fired his entire staff in a fit of rage and then sat on the floor telling stories about a dragon named Fred. "Fred is a silly name for a dragon," Lily pronounced solemnly. "Dragons should have big names, like Stormfire." "Stormfire," Benjamin repeated, finding the corners of his mouth twitching despite everything. "Okay, once upon a time, there was a dragon named Stormfire." For the next 20 minutes, Benjamin discovered that telling stories to Lily was like negotiating a deal where the other party kept changing the terms. Stormfire started as a dragon, became a dragon who could turn into a butterfly, then needed a best friend who was a talking cloud, then needed to save a princess who was actually a superhero, and didn't need saving, but appreciated the thought. Maria had relaxed slightly, though she still watched him with cautious eyes. Benjamin noticed details about her he never observed before. The calluses on her hands from hard work. The way she kept one hand always within reach of her daughter. The protective instinct that radiated from her even as exhaustion lined her face. "Where's Lily's father?" Benjamin found himself asking during a lull in the story while Lily debated whether Stormfire should have purple or blue scales. Maria's expression shuddered immediately. "Not in the picture. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "Purple and blue," Lily interrupted, patting Benjamin's cheek to get his attention back like a rainbow. "And Stormfire needs to find his mama because he got lost." Something in the way she said it made Benjamin look at Maria more closely. The single mother working as a maid living in staff housing with a toddler. He'd never bothered to know her story. Had never bothered to know any of their stories. They were just functions in his household machine. The realization made him feel hollow all over again. "I think Stormfire should probably get to bed," Maria said gently, reaching for Lily. "It's very late, baby." "But he didn't find his mama yet," Lily protested. "He will," Benjamin heard himself promise. "Tomorrow. If you're still here tomorrow, I'll tell you how Stormfire found his mama." Maria's eyes met his questioning wary. He could see her trying to puzzle him out. The billionaire who'd fired everyone but was making promises to her 3-year-old daughter. Lily yawned again, this time not fighting it. "Okay, tomorrow." She leaned up and before Benjamin could react, kissed his cheek with sticky lips that smelled like the apple juice she must have had earlier. "Night-night, Mr. Sad Man." Maria's mortification was almost comical. "Lily, we don't call people." "It's fine," Benjamin said and meant it. There was something refreshing about Lily's brutal honesty. In his world, everyone lied. Everyone wanted something. This child just said exactly what she saw. Maria gathered Lily into her arms, standing with the practiced ease of a mother used to carrying a sleeping child. "Thank you, Mr. Hale, for letting us stay tonight. We'll be gone first thing in the morning. Your apartment is in the basement." "Yes, B3. It's small, but it's been good for us." Benjamin stood as well, his body protesting after sitting on the marble floor for so long. He was still wearing his suit, though his tie hung loose and his jacket was somewhere on the couch. He felt disheveled in a way he never allowed himself to be. "I'll walk you down." "That's not necessary. I'm walking you down." The elevator ride to the basement level was silent except for Lily's soft breathing against Maria's shoulder. Benjamin watched the numbers descend, thinking about how he'd lived in this building for 4 years and never once visited the staff quarters. He'd provided them. He wasn't a monster, but he never thought about who lived there, what their lives looked like. The basement hallway was clean, but stark, a far cry from the luxury of his penthouse. Maria's apartment was at the end, and she had to shift Lily to one arm to unlock the door. Benjamin automatically reached out to take the little girl. Maria hesitated, then carefully transferred Lily to him. The child settled against his shoulder without waking, her small hand curling into his shirt. Benjamin felt something crack in his chest, some wall he built so carefully, so deliberately. The apartment was tiny. A main room that served as kitchen, dining, and living area, a bathroom he could see through an open door, and what must be a bedroom beyond. But it was warm in a way his penthouse had never been. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A worn couch held colorful pillows. Books were stacked on every surface. It smelled like cinnamon and lived in comfort. Maria took Lily and disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Benjamin standing awkwardly in the small space. He noticed a laptop on the tiny dining table, surrounded by textbooks, medical terminology, anatomy. She was studying something. Maria emerged a few minutes later, having changed Lily into fresh pajamas and tucked her into bed. She left the bedroom door cracked open. "She'll sleep now," Maria said quietly. Thank you again, Mr. Hale. You didn't have to be kind to us. Why are you studying medicine? He gestured to the books. Maria looked surprised that he'd noticed. Nursing. I'm working toward my RN. It's slow going. I can only take 1 or 2 classes at a time because of Lily and work, but it's something I've always wanted to do. She paused. Wanted. I guess I'll need to find new employment now before I can think about school again. The guilt hit Benjamin like a physical blow. He'd fired her without thought, without consideration for her circumstances, for her dreams, for the small human sleeping in the next room who depended on her. I was angry, he said, the admission feeling like pulling teeth at my company, at people who betrayed me. I took it out on everyone else. I know something about being angry, Maria said softly. She moved to her small kitchen, filling a kettle with water. Would you like some tea? I know it's late, but you seem like maybe you don't want to go back upstairs yet. She was right. The thought of returning to that empty penthouse, to the bottles of whiskey and the darkness of his own thoughts, made his skin crawl. Yes, thank you. They sat at her small table, 2 mismatched mugs of chamomile tea between them. Benjamin couldn't remember the last time he'd had tea in a mug instead of fine china. Couldn't remember the last time he'd sat in a kitchen that felt like a home. Lily's father, Maria began without Benjamin asking. Left when I was 6 months pregnant. We weren't married. We were young and I thought we were in love. But he wasn't ready to be a father. He made that clear. She wrapped her hands around her mug. I was angry for a long time. Angry that he got to walk away while I had to figure everything out. Angry that Lily would grow up without a dad. Angry that I had to put my dreams on hold. But you're not angry anymore. Some days I am, Maria admitted. But mostly I'm too busy being grateful for what I have. Lily is healthy. We have a roof over our heads. Or we did. She smiled. Riley, I have a path forward. Even if it's slower than I'd like. Anger takes energy. I don't have to spare. Benjamin thought about the rage that had consumed him tonight. The way it had burned through him like wildfire. I don't know how to do that. Let it go. Maybe because you haven't had to, Maria suggested gently. When you have enough money, enough power, you can afford to hold on to anger. You can make people pay for hurting you. But people like me, we just have to keep moving forward. They sat in silence for a while, drinking tea in a basement apartment while the city hummed outside. Benjamin felt something shifting inside him, like tectonic plates rearranging after an earthquake. Tell me about her, he said. Finally, Lily. Maria's face transformed when she talked about her daughter. Benjamin learned that Lily was obsessed with anything that sparkled, that she insisted on wearing mismatched socks because feet should have fun, too. That she taught herself to count to 20 in Spanish and English. That she was terrified of the dark but brave about everything else. She doesn't understand why we don't have a big house or why I can't buy her every toy she wants, Maria said. But she's never complained. She just loves with her whole heart. Sometimes I think she's the best person I've ever met and she's only 3. She saw me crying. Benjamin said, I don't cry. I haven't cried since I was a child. Maybe it's time you did. The words were simple, but they hit Benjamin like a confession. He'd spent so long being strong, being in control, being the man his father demanded he become. When had he last let himself feel anything real? As if summoned by the thought his phone rang, his mother. Benjamin silenced it. She would have heard about the scandal by now. She would want to strategize, to spin, to control the narrative. She wouldn't want to hear that her son was sitting in a basement apartment drinking tea with a maid. You should probably get that, Maria said. Probably. But Benjamin didn't move. Through the cracked bedroom door, he could hear Lily mumbling in her sleep. Something about purple dragons and butterfly wings. The sound was oddly soothing. Can I ask you something? Maria said. Why did you really let us stay? Benjamin considered the question. I don't know. Maybe because your daughter looked at me and saw a sad person. Not a billionaire, not a scandal, just someone who needed a soft rabbit and a story about dragons. He met Maria's eyes. When was the last time anyone saw me like that? Maybe, Maria said slowly. People would see you that way if you let them. It was nearly 3 o'clock in the morning when Benjamin finally returned to his penthouse. But he left with a promise to return in the morning to finish the story about Stormfire. And for the first time in hours, he felt like maybe the world hadn't completely ended. Maybe he thought as the elevator climbed toward his empty home, it was just beginning. Benjamin woke at 6 a.m. with a pounding headache and the distinct feeling that his life had veered wildly off course. For a moment, lying in his king-sized bed with its Egyptian cotton sheets, he convinced himself that last night had been some stress-induced fever dream. He hadn't really fired his entire staff. He hadn't sat on the floor telling stories to a 3-year-old. He hadn't spent an hour drinking tea in a basement apartment, talking to a woman whose last name he'd barely known 24 hours ago. Then he saw the stuffed rabbit on his nightstand. Lily had insisted he borrow Bunny for the night and reality crashed back. His phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 unread messages, his mother, his lawyer, board members, journalists. The business world was having a field day with the Hale Empire's implosion. And here he was, holding a worn, stuffed rabbit that smelled faintly of baby shampoo and something sweet he couldn't identify. Benjamin should have been making calls, doing damage control, strategizing his comeback. Instead, he found himself in the shower thinking about a little girl who thought dragons should have rainbow scales and a woman who was working herself to exhaustion while trying to build a better future. By 7 a.m. he was dressed casually, jeans and a sweater, clothes he usually only wore on private jets, and standing outside Maria's apartment door with a bag of pastries from the only bakery in a 10-block radius that was open this early. He felt ridiculous. Billionaires didn't make breakfasts. They had people for that. Except he'd fired all those people. Maria answered the door in a bathrobe, her hair damp from the shower, eyes wide with surprise. From inside the apartment, Benjamin could hear morning cartoons and Lily's delighted laughter. "Mr. Hale, it's 7 in the morning. I brought breakfast." He held up the bag awkwardly, "and I promised Lily I'd finish the story about Stormfire." Maria stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Behind her, Lily appeared, still in her star and moon pajamas, dragging Bunny Mark, too. Apparently, there was a backup rabbit. "Mr. Sad Man." Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "You came back. I promised, didn't I?" Lily launched herself at his legs, hugging him with the uncomplicated enthusiasm of childhood. Benjamin found himself patting her curly head, this gesture of affection feeling foreign but not unwelcome. Lily let Mr. Hale breathe, Maria said, but she was smiling slightly. "Would you like to come in?" The apartment looked different in morning light. Still small, still cramped, but warm and lived in. Lily immediately dragged Benjamin to the couch, which barely fit 2 adults, but somehow accommodated a billionaire and a toddler as she climbed into his lap. "Story first or breakfast first?" Lily demanded. "How about both?" Benjamin suggested. "I brought chocolate croissants. I love chocolate." Lily's never met a sweet she didn't love, Maria said, bringing plates from her tiny kitchen. She'd pulled her wet hair into a ponytail and thrown on jeans and a sweater without makeup with her face scrubbed clean. She looked younger than 28. "You really didn't have to do this, Mr. Hale." "Benjamin," he said, "if I'm going to be sitting in your living room at 7 a.m. telling stories about dragons, you should probably call me Benjamin." Maria's eyebrows rose, but she nodded. "Benjamin, then. And I'm Maria, though I guess you knew that." They ate breakfast while Benjamin picked up the story of Stormfire where he left off. With Lily's elaborate input, the dragon's quest to find his mother became increasingly complex, involving a wise owl named Wise Owl Feather, a river made of starlight, and a magical forest where the trees could sing. Benjamin discovered that making up stories wasn't so different from creating business pitches. You just had to engage your audience, anticipate their questions, and adapt on the fly. Except Lily was a much more demanding audience than any venture capitalist. But why couldn't Stormfire just fly over the singing trees? Lily asked, chocolate smeared on her cheek. Because the trees were so tall, they reached into the clouds, Benjamin improvised. And Stormfire was afraid of heights. A dragon afraid of heights. Maria laughed. The sound unexpected and warm. That's a new one. Everyone's afraid of something, Benjamin said, looking at Lily's rapt face. Even dragons. The story eventually ended with Stormfire finding his mother, who had been looking for him all along. They'd just been searching in different places. Lily made Benjamin repeat the reunion scene 3 times, seeming to need the reassurance that they'd found each other. When the story was done, Lily yawned hugely despite it only being 8 o'clock in the morning. Nap time, she asked hopefully. You just woke up, Maria said, laughing. But we can have quiet time while Mama gets ready for her. She stopped, her face falling. I guess I need to start looking for new jobs today. The reminder hit Benjamin like cold water. He'd fired her. He'd fired all of them. And while he'd been sitting here playing house, 20 people were probably frantically searching for new employment, wondering how they'd pay their bills. I need to talk to you about that, Benjamin said. Lily, do you think Bunny would like to watch cartoons for a few minutes while I talk to your mama? Lily considered this gravely, then nodded. Bunny loves Bluey. Once Lily was settled with her show and backup rabbit, Maria led Benjamin to her small kitchen area, far enough from the living room that they could talk quietly. I want to hire everyone back, Benjamin said without preamble. Maria blinked. What? Last night I was angry and hurt, and I made a terrible decision. I want to hire everyone back, including you. With a raise and a formal apology. Benjamin, that's generous, but you can't just. I can actually. It's my house, my staff, my mistake to fix. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not good at admitting when I'm wrong. My father taught me that showing weakness in business is fatal. But this wasn't business. This was people's lives and I treated them like collateral damage in my own drama. Maria leaned against her small counter studying him. What changed between last night and this morning? Lily, Benjamin said simply, your daughter looked at me and saw someone who needed help. Not someone she could use or fear. She just wanted to make me feel better. And you were kind when you had every right to slam the door in my face. He met her eyes. I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, access, status. You two are the first people in years who just saw me. We still need things from you, Maria pointed out gently. I need a job, a place to live. I need stability for my daughter. I know, but you didn't lead with that. You led with tea and honesty and letting your daughter share her rabbit with a stranger. Benjamin found himself smiling slightly. Besides, I made a promise to finish the story. Can't do that if you're gone. Maria shook her head, but she was smiling, too. You're a strange man, Benjamin Hale. I'm beginning to think that might not be a bad thing. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Benjamin made calls from Maria's couch while Lily alternated between watching cartoons and trying to braid his hair. He had no idea 3-year-olds could be so persistent. He reached out to each staff member he'd fired, offering them their positions back with a 20% raise and his sincere apology. Some accepted immediately, relief evident in their voices. Others were more hesitant, hurt by the abrupt dismissal. Benjamin didn't blame them. He promised to do better to be better and meant it. By noon, Maria had to leave for a class. She was taking advantage of her unexpected free time to attend a lecture she'd normally miss due to work. Benjamin found himself volunteering to watch Lily. Are you sure? Maria asked, clearly doubtful. She can be a handful. I negotiated a $3 billion merger in 4 languages last year, Benjamin said dryly. I think I can handle one small human for a few hours. Famous last words. 30 minutes after Maria left, Lily had convinced Benjamin to have a tea party with all her stuffed animals, including Bunny and Bunny Mark II. He found himself sitting cross-legged on the floor holding a plastic teacup while Lily explained in great detail that Mr. Lion liked his tea with 7 sugars and Miss Fox was on a diet. You have to use your pinky, Lily instructed, demonstrating with her tiny finger extended. That's how fancy people drink tea. Benjamin extended his pinky obediently, feeling absurd and oddly happy. When was the last time he'd done something this silly? This pointless? This completely divorced from productivity and profit margins? Am I doing it right? He asked seriously. Lily examined his form critically. Better. But you need to smile more. Tea parties are happy. I'll work on it. After the tea party came a dance party, apparently essential after tea, which involved a lot of spinning and giggling, and Benjamin attempting to remember any dance moves that weren't the stiff, formal steps he'd learned for charity galas. Lily found his efforts hilarious. You dance like a robot, she declared, dissolving into giggles. I do not dance like a robot. Beep boop boop. Lily imitated his stiff movements, and Benjamin couldn't help laughing. They built a fort out of couch cushions and blankets, creating what Lily deemed the best castle in the world. Inside the fort, by phone light, Lily made Benjamin tell another story. This time about a princess who saved the dragon instead of the other way around. Because girls are strong, too. Lily informed him matter-of-factly. Girls are very strong, Benjamin agreed, thinking about Maria juggling work and school and single parenthood. Somewhere in the middle of the afternoon, surrounded by blankets and stuffed animals, with a 3-year-old's head resting on his shoulder as she drifted off for her nap, Benjamin had an epiphany. This feeling, this warmth, this contentment, this sense of mattering to someone for no reason other than being present. This was what he'd been chasing his whole life. Not money, not power, not his father's approval. Just this connection, purpose beyond profit. When Maria returned that evening, she found them both asleep in the blanket fort. Lily curled against Benjamin's chest, his arm around her protectively. She stood in the doorway of her small apartment, textbooks in hand, and stared at the scene before her. The billionaire who'd fired her last night was asleep on her floor, holding her daughter like she was precious. His expression, usually so guarded and controlled, was peaceful in sleep. Maria's phone buzzed. A message from her classmate. Did you hear? Benjamin Hale's company scandal is all over the news. They're saying he might lose everything. She looked at the man in her living room. This strange, complicated person who'd spent his day having tea parties and building forts, who'd made her daughter laugh and given Maria her job back and seemed, despite all his wealth and power, fundamentally lonely. Whatever happened with his company, Maria thought maybe Benjamin Hale had already found something worth more than his empire. She just hoped he'd realize it before it was too late. The media storm hit like a Category 5 hurricane. By the end of the week, Benjamin's face was on every business publication, every news site, every social media feed. The narrative was simple and brutal. Boy, genius billionaire brought down by his own blind trust. Empire crumbling. Fortune evaporating. The board had formally asked for his resignation from his own company. His investors were fleeing. 3 major deals had collapsed overnight. Financial analysts were predicting total bankruptcy within 6 months. Benjamin should have been devastated. A week ago, he would have been, but something had shifted. He'd moved most of his essential operations to his penthouse, working from home while the corporate office descended into chaos without him. But several times a day, he found himself taking the elevator down to B3, ostensibly to check on the returning staff, but really to see if Maria and Lily were home. Lily had taken to running to the door when she heard his knock, greeting him with hugs and demands for stories. Maria had stopped looking surprised to see him, though she watched him with careful, assessing eyes, like she was trying to figure out what he was really after. If he was honest, Benjamin wasn't entirely sure himself. "You're hiding," Maria said one evening. She'd invited him to stay for dinner. Spaghetti and meatballs that Lily had helped make, which meant there was sauce on every surface. They were sitting at her small table, Lily chattering about her day at the daycare center Maria had enrolled her in now that she wasn't working full-time. "I'm strategizing," Benjamin corrected, twirling pasta on his fork. "You're hiding," Maria repeated. "From your mother, your lawyers, your whole life up there." She gestured vaguely upward toward his penthouse 30 floors above. Benjamin set down his fork. "My whole life up there is falling apart. Everything I built is turning to ash. Why wouldn't I hide?" "Because you're Benjamin Hale," Lily piped up, tomato sauce on her nose. "Benjamin Hale isn't scared of anything." "Where did you hear that?" Benjamin asked, amused despite himself. "Mama's friend showed her a magazine with your picture. It said you were what was it, Mama?" "A titan of industry," Maria supplied, looking embarrassed. "One of the most fearless businessmen of our generation." It was an old article. "Fearless," Benjamin repeated bitterly. "That's what they wrote before they found out I was too stupid to see betrayal in my own company." "You weren't stupid," Maria said quietly. "You trusted people. That's not the same thing. In my world, it is." They ate in silence for a moment, Lily oblivious to the heavy undercurrents, more interested in building a tower out of her meatballs. "Can I ask you something?" Maria said. "Why business? Why spend your whole life building this empire?" Benjamin considered the question. No one had ever really asked him that before. It was just assumed he was smart, ambitious, from a wealthy family. Of course, he'd build an empire. Benjamin considered the question. No one had ever really asked him that before. It was just assumed. He was smart, ambitious from a wealthy family. Of course, he'd build an empire. "My father," he said finally. He had this phrase. He used to say legacy is the only thing that outlasts death. He built his fortune from nothing. Came to this country with $500 and turned it into billions. He wanted me to take what he built and make it bigger, better, more powerful. Benjamin pushed his pasta around his plate. "He died when I was 25. A heart attack at his desk working on a deal. His last words to me were about quarterly projections." Maria's hand covered his on the table, warm and real. "I'm sorry. I spent the next 8 years trying to prove I was worthy of his legacy. Every deal, every acquisition, every risk, it was all about being the son he wanted, being someone he could be proud of." Benjamin laughed without humor. "And now it's all falling apart. And I can't stop thinking that he'd be ashamed of me." Or maybe Maria said softly, "He'd be proud that you're learning there's more to life than quarterly projections." "Like what?" "Tea parties and blanket forts. Like being a person someone can actually care about." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning Benjamin wasn't ready to examine too closely. Lily broke the moment by knocking over her meatball tower, sending tomato sauce flying across the table. "Oops," she said, completely unrepentant. Later, after Lily was in bed and the kitchen was cleaned, Benjamin found himself still there, sitting on Maria's worn couch with a cup of coffee. This was becoming a habit, staying in this small basement apartment rather than returning to his vast, empty penthouse. "You should probably go home," Maria said, but she said it gently without real conviction. "Probably," Benjamin agreed, not moving. Maria sat beside him, tucking her feet under her. She'd changed into pajama pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked tired but peaceful in a way Benjamin envied. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "I looked you up. After you offered everyone their jobs back, I was curious about who you really were." "And what did you find?" "Articles about your business genius. Photos of you at galas with beautiful women. Stories about your ruthlessness in negotiations. An interview where you said personal relationships were a distraction from professional success." She looked at him, but none of it matched the guy who spent 3 hours building a blanket fort with my daughter yesterday. Maybe that guy was always there, Benjamin said quietly. I just buried him under everything my father taught me about what a man should be. What did he teach you? That emotions are weakness. That people will exploit any vulnerability. That love is a luxury successful men can't afford. Benjamin set down his coffee cup. That the only thing that matters is power, because power means you can never be hurt. And you believed him for 33 years. Yes. Benjamin met her eyes until a 3-year-old handed me a stuffed rabbit and told me I looked sad. Maria smiled. Lily has a way of cutting through nonsense. Must be nice being 3 and just saying exactly what you see. She gets it from you. Benjamin said the honesty, the kindness, the way you see people as people, not functions or obstacles or opportunities. Is that how you usually see people? Benjamin wanted to deny it, but he promised himself he was done lying. At least here in this basement apartment that felt more like home than anywhere he'd ever lived. Yes, I'm not proud of it, but yes. And now I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be my father's idea of success. He looked around the small apartment. It's terrifying. Honestly, I've spent my entire adult life knowing exactly who I was, what I wanted, where I was going. And now you're human. Maria finished. Welcome to the club. It's scary and messy, and you'll screw up constantly, but it's also real, which is more than you can say for whatever performance you were doing before. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing. Maria told him about growing up in Colombia, immigrating with her parents at 15, losing them both in a car accident when she was 23. About Lily's father, who'd seemed perfect until the pregnancy test came back positive, about her dreams of being a nurse, of helping people, of building a stable life for her daughter. Benjamin told her about the loneliness of being groomed for greatness from childhood. About boarding schools and tutors and never quite fitting in anywhere. About relationships that never went deeper than surface charm because he'd learned early that people wanted the Benjamin Hale brand, not the actual person. About the bone-deep terror he felt now watching everything he'd built collapse. Maybe it needs to collapse, Maria suggested. Maybe you built it all for the wrong reasons, and this is your chance to start over. At 33, after losing everything, you haven't lost everything, Maria said firmly. You lost money and status. Those aren't the same as everything. What haven't I lost? Yourself. The real you. The one who tells stories about dragons afraid of heights and builds forts and admits when he's scared. She hesitated, then added. The one Lily and I are starting to really like. Benjamin's breath caught. Maria, I'm not saying this to pressure you or because I work for you or any of that, Maria said quickly. I'm saying it because I think you need to hear that you're worth more than your bank account, that you matter beyond what you can do or buy or achieve. I don't know how to be that person. Then learn. Lily's still figuring out how to be a person, too, and she's 3. You've got a head start. They both laughed, and the tension broke. But something had shifted between them. Some acknowledgement of feelings neither was quite ready to name. Benjamin's phone buzzed. His mother again. The 20th call today that he hadn't answered. You're going to have to talk to her eventually, Maria said. I know. Benjamin silenced the phone. I'm just not ready to hear that I'm a disappointment. Not yet. Are you though? A disappointment? I lost the company my father built. You lost a company that was eating you alive. Maria corrected. There's a difference. Before Benjamin could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway to her bedroom, dragging Bunny, tears streaming down her face. Bad dream, she whimpered. Maria was up instantly, gathering Lily into her arms. Oh, baby, it's okay. Mama's here. But Lily reached for Benjamin over her mother's shoulder. Want Benjamin to tell the dream away. Tell the dream away, Benjamin repeated, moving closer. She thinks you can tell stories that make bad dreams go away, Maria explained, looking between them. Lily, honey, Benjamin needs to go home. I can stay, Benjamin said. If that's okay with you. Maria hesitated, then nodded. Lily transferred to Benjamin's arms, still crying softly. He carried her to the small couch, sitting down with her in his lap. Just like that first night. Tell me about the bad dream, he said softly. Everything was dark, Lily sniffled. And I couldn't find you or Mama. I was all alone. Something in Benjamin's chest cracked. You're not alone, Lily. Your Mama is right here. And I'm here, too. But what if you go away? What if everybody goes away? Hey. Benjamin tilted her chin up, so she was looking at him. I promise you, your Mama will never leave you. She loves you more than anything in the whole world. And me. I'm not going anywhere either. Not unless you want me to. You promise? It was a child's question asked with a child's faith that promises meant something. Benjamin thought about all the promises he'd made in business, the ones he'd broken without hesitation when it served his interests. This felt different. This felt sacred. I promise, he said, and meant it with everything in him. Lily settled against his chest, her crying subsiding. Tell me a story about Stormfire. So Benjamin did. He told her about Stormfire and his mother building a new home together. About how they learned that getting lost sometimes meant you found your way to where you really needed to be. About how being afraid was okay as long as you didn't let fear stop you from loving people. By the time the story ended, Lily was asleep. Maria came and sat beside them, her shoulder touching Benjamin's. You're good with her, she whispered. She makes it easy to be good. Benjamin, what are we doing here? It was the question he'd been avoiding. The one that kept him coming back to this basement apartment night after night. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I don't want to stop. Your life is complicated right now. You're losing your company, dealing with scandals, trying to figure out who you are, adding us to that mix. You're not being added to the mix, Maria. You're the only thing making sense right now. He looked at her, really looked at her. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know I'm probably the last person you should trust with your heart or your daughters. But I can't stop thinking about you both. Can't stop wanting to be here in this tiny apartment that somehow feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived. Maria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I have a 3-year-old daughter and I'm working toward a nursing degree and I live in a basement apartment. You're a billionaire who's probably going to be bankrupt in 6 months, Benjamin finished. Who doesn't have a clue what he's doing with his life? Who spent yesterday having a tea party with stuffed animals and realized it was the happiest he'd been in years? This is crazy. Completely insane, Benjamin agreed. They sat there on the small couch, Lily sleeping between them, and let the possibility of something impossible hang in the air. Outside, the city hummed with its endless energy. Upstairs, Benjamin's old life was disintegrating. But here, in this small basement apartment, something new was beginning. Something that felt a lot like hope. 3 months later, Benjamin stood in the small backyard of the house in Brooklyn, watching Lily chase butterflies through the wild flowers Maria had planted. The modest brownstone was a far cry from his Manhattan penthouse, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. The bankruptcy had been final. Benjamin Hale, boy wonder billionaire, had lost almost everything. The media had feasted on his downfall for weeks before moving on to the next scandal. His mother still wasn't speaking to him. His decision to throw away his legacy for some maid and her bastard child had been the final straw in their relationship. It should have destroyed him. Instead, Benjamin felt lighter than he had in years. He'd kept one property from the liquidation. This house purchased quietly under an LLC weeks before the final verdict. It had 3 bedrooms, a postage stamp yard, and a mortgage Benjamin could actually afford with the consulting work he'd started doing. Nothing glamorous, just helping startups with their business strategies, working from the dining room table instead of a corner office. Maria had fought him on accepting the house. At first, her pride wouldn't let her take what she saw as charity. But Benjamin had pointed out that he needed roommates to afford the mortgage anyway, and Lily needed a yard to play in. And also, he was pretty sure he was falling in love with them both. So, would she please just move in already? That last part had slipped out accidentally 3 weeks after the bankruptcy, while they were having yet another argument about it over dinner in her basement apartment. Maria had stared at him, fork halfway to her mouth. What did you just say? I said I need roommates. Benjamin had tried after that. That Lily needs a yard. Benjamin. He'd put down his own fork, suddenly nervous in a way no boardroom had ever made him. I said I'm falling in love with you, both of you. And before you panic, I'm not expecting you to say it back or even feel the same way. I just thought you should know that this isn't some rescue fantasy or rebound from my old life. You're not a consolation prize for losing everything else. You're the thing I found when I finally stopped looking in the wrong places. Maria had been quiet for a long moment. Then I'm falling in love with you, too, and it terrifies me. Join the club, Benjamin had said, relief flooding through him. I'm terrified constantly, but I'd rather be terrified with you than comfortable and empty without you. They'd moved into the brownstone 2 weeks later. Now, watching Lily discover a ladybug with the same wonder she brought to everything, Benjamin felt his phone buzz. A text from his former assistant, one of the few who'd stayed in touch. Saw your LinkedIn update. Consulting. Really? He typed back. Really? Turns out I'm good at helping people build things without needing to own them. Another text, this one from his lawyer. Your mother called again. She wants to meet. Benjamin pocketed the phone without responding. Maybe someday he'd be ready for that conversation. Today wasn't that day. Benjamin. Lily called from across the yard. Come see. It has spots. He crossed the small yard, crouching down to examine the ladybug crawling across Lily's palm. She'd grown so much in 3 months, more confident, more talkative, more secure. She called him Benjamin now instead of Mr. Sad Man, though occasionally she'd pat his cheek and ask if he was happy today, with such earnest concern it made his heart ache. 7 spots, he counted. That means 7 wishes. That's not how ladybugs work, Lily said with the authority of a 3-year-old who'd recently learned a fact. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure that's exactly how they work. What would you wish for? Lily asked, ever practical. Benjamin thought about it. 3 months ago, he would have wished for his company back, for his reputation restored, for everything he'd lost. Now, I'd wish that your mom's nursing exam next week goes well, that you keep finding ladybugs, that we're all here together for a very long time. He paused. What would you wish for? Ice cream, Lily said immediately. And a puppy. And for you to stay forever. Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. We can get ice cream later. And I'm definitely staying forever. The puppy we'll have to discuss with your mom. Discuss what with me? Maria appeared from the house carrying a tray with lemonade and cookies. She'd finished her nursing prerequisites and was starting the RN program in the fall. She still had the same warm smile, but the shadows under her eyes were gone. She looked happy. Benjamin said, we can get a puppy. Lily announced, which was very much not what Benjamin had said. Did he now? Maria raised an eyebrow at him, fighting a smile. I said we discuss it, Benjamin protested. That's very different from saying yes. But you didn't say no either, Maria pointed out. They sat in the grass, the 3 of them, eating cookies and drinking lemonade while Lily chattered about her day at preschool. Benjamin had enrolled her in a program near the house. One of many things Maria had finally let him help with after much negotiation about what was helping versus what was buying his way into their lives. Helping is offering to pick her up from school when I have class. Maria had explained buying your way and would be donating a new wing to the school so she gets special treatment. Benjamin was still learning the distinction, but he was trying. Later, after Lily was in bed, Benjamin and Maria sat on the small back porch sharing a bottle of wine that cost $12 instead of $300. Benjamin had discovered he couldn't actually tell the difference. I got a job offer today, Maria said quietly. Benjamin's stomach dropped. Where? New York Presbyterian. It's just a nurse's aide position while I finish my degree, but it's good experience, good pay, good benefits. She paused. It's also night shift, which means I'd be gone when Lily's asleep and home during the day. It would work perfectly with your schedule. You could watch her at night. Of course, I'll watch her, Benjamin said immediately. Maria, this is amazing. Why do you look worried? Because it's another thing you'd be doing for us. Another way you'd be rearranging your life. And I keep wondering when you're going to wake up and realize you gave up everything for a woman and a kid who aren't even yours. Benjamin set down his wine glass and took her hands. 3 months together and they still hadn't quite worked through Maria's fear that he would leave, that this was temporary, that she wasn't worth what he'd given up. Can I tell you something? The day the bankruptcy was finalized, my lawyer offered me a way out, a shell company in the Caymans. Hidden assets, enough money to maintain my old lifestyle. All I had to do was lie about a few things, betray a few people, become exactly the kind of man my father raised me to be. He squeezed her hands. I said, no, not because I'm some kind of saint, but because I'd already learned that having everything meant nothing if I was alone with it. I'd rather have this house, this life, you and Lily, all the billions in the world. You say that now, I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives if that's what it takes for you to believe me. Benjamin pulled her closer. Maria, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not waking up one day and regretting this. If anything, I'm waking up every day grateful that I lost everything because it led me here to a brownstone in Brooklyn with a mortgage and a 3-year-old who wants a puppy. To a home, Benjamin corrected. To people who love me because of who I am, not what I have. To a woman who's brilliant and brave and beautiful, who calls me on my bullshit and makes me want to be better. To a little girl who thinks I hung the moon even though all I do is tell stories about dragons. He kissed her softly. This is everything, Maria. Everything that matters. She kissed him back, then pulled away with a smile. You're really good at speeches, you know that. Former billionaire. We're trained in persuasion. Is that what this is? Persuasion? No, Benjamin said honestly. This is me hoping you'll eventually believe what I already know. That we're supposed to be here together building something real. Later that night, Benjamin lay awake in the bedroom he shared with Maria, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a Brooklyn neighborhood. No doorman, no security system, no insulation from the real world. He could hear someone's TV through the wall, a dog barking down the street, the rumble of the subway a few blocks away. It was perfect. His phone lit up on the nightstand. His mother again. Against his better judgment, Benjamin opened the message. Your father would be ashamed of what you've become. He should have felt the old spike of pain, the desperate need for her approval. Instead, he felt something like pity. His mother was still trapped in the same cage his father had built, still measuring worth in dollars and status. Benjamin typed back. Dad died at his desk working on a deal with no one who truly loved him by his side. If that's what you call success, then yes, he'd be ashamed, but I'm learning to live with that. He hit send before he could second guess it, then turned off his phone. Maria stirred beside him. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, Benjamin said and meant it. In the morning, Lily burst into their room at 6 a.m. demanding pancakes and stories and attention. Benjamin groaned, Maria laughed, and they stumbled to the kitchen together. A family in all the ways that mattered. While Maria made pancakes, Benjamin had discovered he was a disaster in the kitchen. He helped Lily set the table, listening to her rambling story about a dream she'd had about purple unicorns and flying cars. And then the unicorn said, I could have 3 wishes and I wish for pancakes and a puppy and for you and Mama to get married. Lily announced cheerfully. Benjamin froze mid-placement of a fork. Maria turned from the stove, spatula in hand, eyes wide. Lily, Maria said carefully. That's not how wishing works. Why not? Lily asked with perfect 3-year-old logic. If you love each other, you should get married. That's what the stories say. Out of the mouths of babes, Benjamin thought, meeting Maria's eyes across the kitchen. They hadn't talked about marriage. They'd barely talked about the future beyond next month, next season, the careful building of something neither wanted to jinx by defining too clearly. But looking at Maria, now, at the woman who'd seen him at his lowest and hadn't flinched, who'd challenged him to be better and celebrated every small victory, who'd opened her life and her daughter's heart to him without reservation. Benjamin knew. Lily, he said slowly, what if we could make that wish come true? Maria's spatula clattered into the sink. Benjamin, what are you? He crossed the kitchen, taking her flour-dusted hands in his. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know we said we'd take it slow, but I also know I want to spend the rest of my life exactly like this, making pancakes and helping with homework and telling bedtime stories and building a life that matters with you. With Lily officially. Are you proposing to me in our kitchen while our pancakes burn? Our pancakes, our kitchen, our life. Benjamin smiled. Yeah, I guess I am. I don't have a ring. I didn't plan this and I'm probably doing it all wrong, but Maria kissed him, cutting off his rambling. When she pulled back, she was crying and smiling at the same time. Yes, she said simply. Yes to badly timed proposals and burnt pancakes and building a life together. Yes to all of it. Lily cheered, clearly understanding that something important had just happened, even if the details were beyond her. Does this mean we can get a puppy now? Benjamin and Maria looked at each other and laughed. The kind of laugh that shook loose all the remaining fear and doubt, leaving only joy. We'll discuss it, they said in unison, which made Lily pout, but also made them laugh harder. That afternoon, they walked to Prospect Park. The three of them, Lily between them, holding both their hands. They didn't talk about wedding plans or timelines or any of the practical details. They just walked, enjoying the spring sunshine and Lily's running commentary on everything she saw. Benjamin's phone buzzed with another message, but he ignored it. Whatever crisis was unfolding in his old world, whatever drama or opportunity or disaster, it could wait. This moment, this family, this life he'd stumbled into when everything else fell apart. This was what mattered. What are you thinking about? Maria asked, reading his expression. That a year ago, I thought I had everything and I had nothing. He squeezed her hand. And now I have everything that actually counts. Sap, Maria teased, but her eyes were soft completely. Lily's rubbing off on me. Did you hear that, Lily? Benjamin says you're rubbing off on him. Lily looked up. Seriously. That's because I'm very rubby. Very rubby indeed. Benjamin agreed solemnly. They spent the afternoon at the park pushing Lily on swings and helping her navigate the climbing structure and having an elaborate picnic with sandwiches from the bodega on the corner. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, nothing that would have impressed anyone from Benjamin's old life. It was without question the best day he'd ever had. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Lily fell asleep against Benjamin's shoulder on the subway ride home. Maria rested her head on his other shoulder, and Benjamin thought about the strange, beautiful path that had led him here. He'd lost billions of dollars, his company, his reputation, the approval of almost everyone who'd once respected him. And in exchange, he'd gained everything he'd never known he needed. Love, purpose, a little girl who thought he could make dragons fly and bad dreams disappear. A woman who saw past his mistakes to the person he was trying to become. No regrets, Maria whispered, half asleep. Not even one, Benjamin whispered back. And it was true. Every choice, every loss, every moment of fear and uncertainty had led him here to this subway car heading back to their brownstone in Brooklyn. To this small family that had chosen him just as much as he'd chosen them. Benjamin Hale had once believed that legacy was the only thing that outlasted death, that power and money were the measures of a man's worth. But sitting there with Lily's warm weight against his chest and Maria's hand in his, he understood what his father never had. Legacy wasn't about empires or bank accounts or names on buildings. It was about the people you loved and who loved you back. It was about the small moments that added up to a life well lived. It was about a 3-year-old's trust and a woman's faith and the quiet courage to build something real from the ashes of everything fake. It was about coming home. And Benjamin Hale, former billionaire, current consultant, future husband and father, was finally home. 6 months later, they adopted a rescue puppy, a scruffy terrier mix Lily named Stormfire. Maria finished top of her class in nursing school. Benjamin's consulting business grew steadily, built on reputation and referrals rather than ruthless tactics. And every night in a modest brownstone in Brooklyn, Benjamin Hale told bedtime stories to a little girl who'd once refused to leave his side, who'd seen him crying and decided he just needed a stuffed rabbit and some kindness. She'd been right, of course. Sometimes the smallest people have the biggest wisdom, and sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters.